everyone, I'm Taylor Hudak with Activism Munich, and welcome back to another Julian Assange case update. A U.S. federal grand jury issued a superseding indictment against Assange on Wednesday, June 24th, for allegedly conspiring with the decentralized hacking collective Anonymous. The indictment also alleges that Assange and other WikiLeaks staff recruited hackers and encouraged them to submit material to WikiLeaks. The indictment does not bring any additional charges, but it broadens the scope of a previous charge, conspiracy to commit computer intrusion. The indictment states that Assange and other WikiLeaks staff attended hacking conferences and conventions where they encouraged attendees with sophisticated computer skills to access classified material and submit to WikiLeaks. Additionally, the indictment seeks to condemn WikiLeaks journalist Sarah Harrison for helping Edward Snowden seek refuge in order to escape what would have been an unfair prosecution in the U.S. Now, the second part to this indictment alleges that Assange conspired with Anonymous and other hackers. Much of this portion of the indictment is relying on the testimony of two government informants, Sigurdur Thordarson, known as Sigi, and Hector Monsegur, known as Sabu. Both can be considered unreliable and compromised sources, yet the content of this indictment relies heavily on their statements. In 2010, Assange met Sigi, who was referred to as teenager throughout the indictment. Sigi provided Assange with information on a bank company, and Assange allegedly encouraged him to steal additional information related to activities taking place in what's referred to as NATO Country 1, which is Iceland. The indictment also seeks to tie Manning to this alleged plot against NATO Country 1. It claims that in February 2010, Manning searched for classified information and downloaded State Department files concerning NATO Country 1's government. Now, WikiLeaks then published a classified cable from the U.S. Embassy in NATO Country 1. Apparently, WikiLeaks had received this file from Manning. During the period between 2010 and 2011, Sigi was tasked with managing WikiLeaks' IRC channel and began overseeing communications with others on this channel. The indictment alleges that during this time, Sigi was in communication with anonymous affiliated hackers and was relaying the messages to Assange and speaking to these hackers on Assange's behalf. According to Wired, Sigi was eventually fired from WikiLeaks in the fall of 2011 for embezzling thousands of dollars from the organization. Interestingly, the indictment falsely states that Sigi just left. A few years later, in 2014 and 2015, Sigi was charged and pled guilty to multiple counts on theft and embezzlement. He was also sentenced to prison for sexual assault, which involved minors. And despite this, the FBI chose to work with him anyway, and he became the star witness in this indictment, all to frame a journalist and truth teller, Julian Assange. On June 19th, LulzSec announced it launched Operation Anti-Sec, involving cyber attacks against banks, government agencies, and security firms. Sabu and Jeremy Hammond began working closely together. According to the new indictment, beginning in December of 2011, Hammond and Assange began communicating and discussed the hack of a private intelligence company referred to in the indictment as Intelligence Consulting Company. FBI informant Sabu began communicating with Assange the following month. Sabu asked Assange if he had any other targets in mind. The indictment then states that initially Assange declined to suggest any targets for legal reasons, but eventually went on to suggest what is referred to as research investigative firm. Assange suggested LulzSec look into its databases, documents, and PDFs and submit the findings to WikiLeaks. The indictment claims Assange provided LulzSec with scripts to search the stolen emails from Intelligence Consulting Company. On February 27th, WikiLeaks began publishing the hacked emails, and in March, Jeremy Hammond was arrested as his identity and activities were known to the FBI via Sabu. Hammond was subsequently sentenced to 10 years in prison and accepted a non-cooperating plea deal with one count of violating the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act in relation to the Stratfor hacks. In September 2019, Hammond was summoned to testify before a grand jury investigating WikiLeaks in the Eastern District Court of Virginia. And similar to Chelsea Manning, Hammond refused to testify and was found in contempt. Hammond remains in prison at this time. Meanwhile, Sabu lives comfortably as a free man. Supporters of WikiLeaks and of Assange have spoken out against this indictment, claiming it is part of a larger smear campaign to frame Assange as a hacker and distance his activities from that of a journalist. The new indictment seeks to criminalize the interactions that take place between a journalist and his or her source, and may therefore set a dangerous and chilling precedent for journalists exposing corruption at the highest levels. Now, Assange's next call-over hearing is scheduled for June 29th, where this new indictment is expected to be addressed in the court. I will, of course, continue to follow this case, so do make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you've missed any of my updates, or if you are new here, you can find all of my reports on the playlist Julian Assange Case Updates. I'm Taylor Hudak with Activism Munich. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you all next time.